Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another professional learning opportunity presented by the Maine Department of Education. For those of you who have not met me, my name is Jason Anderson. I'm your Visual and Performing Arts Content Specialist at the department. And I'm pleased to have our guest presenter, Katie Royal, here today. I'll read Katie's bio in just a minute, but she comes to us by way of North Carolina. She works at the North Carolina Virtual Academy, and she's a visual arts educator there. And Katie's and I have designed a three-part series on teaching visual art in the time of the COVID pandemic. And this is the first of 3 sessions. So we're really excited to have you all joining us today. A little bit about Katie, about our presenter. Katie Royal is an online visual arts teacher who teaches high school Art 1, digital photography, and digital imaging and design. Katie is in her 9th year of teaching and 4th year of teaching virtually. She also is currently serving her 3rd year as a mentor for teachers who are new to online education. She strongly advocates that all students should receive a high-quality arts education, while teaching online has developed various methods to provide authentic virtual experiences. She holds a BA in art education with a K-12 licensure from Meredith College and is currently pursuing her Master of Education degree in online instruction from Southern New Hampshire University. And Katie, we didn't talk about this, but I'm also an alum of SNHU. I went and got a master's degree in curriculum and instruction there. So it's a fantastic school and great program. Aside from teaching, she lives in North Carolina with her husband, Curtis, and their 3 children, all of which are currently being homeschooled. And in her free time, she enjoys being outdoors, camping and hiking, and spending time with her family. So our topic for this evening is going to be teaching art, visual art, in an online setting. And as always, if you have any questions during the presentation, if you could pop those in the chat, we will stop periodically and check for questions that people might have on whatever topic we're on at the time. I know that Katie has a survey for you at the end. That'll be a way for you to reach out to her for support and questions and issues that you may have that she would like to offer support with after the session is through. And I also will have an exit ticket with a link to a PD certificate for you at the end of this session. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to our presenter, Katie Royal.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. I am going to go ahead and start sharing my screen here. And I'm going to attempt to make this bigger so that you guys can see. Alrighty, so everybody able to see the PowerPoint slide? Thumbs up or good? Okay, good, awesome. So while I'm screen sharing, I'm unable to see the chat. So we will kind of flip-flop and I'll make this smaller so that I can view the chat, but we're going to go ahead and get started. So today we are looking at visual arts education in an online setting. This is me, and I have my email. I'll make sure to provide that at the end. There's also a survey that's going to be pushed out so that if you have questions, we can talk about them over email independently. But today's goal is just to discuss creating a virtual environment. Now, I know that some of you are teaching completely remotely, and some of you are maybe implementing a hybrid model, so you're half and half. So we're going to talk about scenarios that kind of ebb and flow very nicely with either or of the scenarios. And we're also going to talk about synchronous and asynchronous learning, and then also go over some review strategies. So in case you want to provide quizzes or tests or things of that nature, just general review, some ways to do that. All right, so the first thing that I wanted to share with you is a Bitmoji virtual classroom setup. I know from being a brick and mortar teacher, that was like my baby, right? How you set up your classroom, the posters you have up, what artwork you present, that was the staple of the art room. And when you move into a virtual setting, you kind of lose that little part. So being able to create a virtual classroom and be able to implement things that are personal to you, that can create that warm scene, is super important. And I will share this PowerPoint with Jason so that he can push this out to everybody, because everything's hyperlinked. So if you want to, try out Bitmoji if you haven't done so already, and then also the second link here shares with you how to set it up. But it's really super user friendly in terms of setting up a classroom. And I have an example of one that I always have. This is for my Art 1 course. So they come in and I have a whiteboard. It has their warm up, whatever that may be. And then it also has like some little reminders and some other things that you would need in terms of a virtual classroom. So they need to check their audio and their mic, especially if you're wanting them to talk over the mic and participate that way. Make sure that they also complete the warm up, whatever that may be. And then we use Blackboard Collaborate, and there's certain tools that you can use within that platform to engage participation, and one of those are the green checks. So I always ask for a green check. But again, just setting up a virtual classroom to kind of set the tone and give you that warm feel. So the first thing that I wanted to start off with questions, and I actually was able to get my chat to come up, even though I'm doing this in an enlarged platform, is, what are some procedures that you have or that you would like to have in your classroom? And if you want to hop on the mic or type in the chat, but what are some of those go-to procedures or routines that you want to become a habit for your classroom? Ooh, don't everybody jump at once. You didn't think you were gonna have to work today, huh? So yeah, if you want, just go ahead, go ahead and hop on the mic. Go ahead and put in the chat. Go ahead.
Hey, I use Google Classroom and of course Google Drive as well. And I find that Google Drawings is an excellent app for students to produce evidence of what they've been working on and what they're learning. So they'll do screenshots of work in progress. And I teach digital photography, a digital media class as well. And so a lot of it kind of lends itself to remote kinds of learning because so much of it's digital to begin with. And so it's a simple matter. I mean, they're not having to take photographs of their work. They can just do a screenshot of what's up in the particular application that they might be using. And so that's a routine that I have when an assignment hits the classroom. The first thing they should do is go in and submit a Google drawing, or at least produce a Google drawing. Of course, I can go on in Classroom and right away see who's started that process. And that kind of gets everybody together. I didn't use Classroom for a long time until the pandemic struck, and we were told that's what we had to do. And I used Google Drive because I like the idea that students could see each other's work and they could share what it was that they were working on. And in Google Classroom directly, you couldn't. Well, I've discovered since then, if you actually go into the Drive, students can go back into the Drive under Classroom folder and see each other's work. So it's kind of an around the loop sort of way, but they do share. And having that start, that's kind of a procedure that they all showed they could do early in the school year. And so we kind of constantly are working on that. So all of the work that they're doing is kind of a work in progress. Because I'm remote with my students, I can't look over their shoulder. The only evidence I have is evidence that they present. And then the others, the breakout rooms, those are really super helpful. And we just got Google Breakouts working and it's slick. It works really well. It takes about 15 minutes to set up and you're there.
Yeah, okay, awesome. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else?
I'd probably say something that I would want for my classroom is more time to come up with those, bell ringer activities or get started activities. It was something I always did before, but I'm having a hard time finding time to do that as well on top of the other stuff, but I think it would be essential to try to work that in, only because I have, you know, I have the hybrid students that are on. I'm trying to take attendance, and it would just be nice to have, you know, each group, kids in my class, kids at home working on something that would help fill their time, so there's not so much wait time. I mean, it's getting better, but still messy.
That's understandable. Anyone else? And I think your conversation about the bell ringers kind of lends nicely to what I want to talk about next, and that and then moves into asynchronous and synchronous learning. So, you know, the big question is, my job today is not to tell you guys how to teach. You know the content, you know how to teach. You guys have been teaching for years, but I am here to offer support on how to do that virtually, and just to kind of get maybe not necessarily a new way to teach, but maybe a way to manipulate what you're already doing virtually. So the big question here is, you know, we've got these ideas, we've got our routines, we've got our procedures. How do we start implementing that virtually? And so I first just want to outline asynchronous and synchronous learning. Asynchronous is going to be work that the students can do on their own, not necessarily something that you have to guide them through, that you have to do a teacher demo for. Asynchronous learning, however, can be what's called flipped classroom. So you could do a recording, push the recording out. You're not necessarily having to do anything in real time. There's prep work to that, but it is something that the students can follow on their own. Now, synchronous learning on the flip side is where you're going to have those live sessions. So like Charlie was talking about in terms of Google Classroom and doing the breakout rooms, which that's awesome. And so we're going to kind of talk about opportunities for both. So I think I'm going to skip this part just for the sake of time, but we can definitely come back to it if we want. I was going to have us share out examples, but we can revisit this slide here in a few minutes. So just to kind of share what I do in terms of asynchronous learning. So I do teach Art 1, digital photography, and digital imaging and design. And we at North Carolina Virtual Academy are expected to meet with each of our classes 1 hour a day. So I'm teaching 4 hours live. And then outside of that, students are expected to spend an hour working on content. And so asynchronous working on content would be your study guides, so that can help supplement them reading through the content. Any type of worksheets or any type of practice. I have teacher demonstration recordings. That goes back to that flipped classroom model. I use those a lot with my digital imaging and design course. I'll do some type of photo editing or some type of photo creation in my editing software. I'll kind of record myself in live time doing that, and then I'll push that out for them to work on that independently. I also do sketchbook assignments, and then we also have exit tickets, Go Formative, and Kahoot. So here's some examples. Again, I'm going to push out this PowerPoint slide, but I have some things that I'm going to share with you right now. So here's an example of what my study guides look like. It's basic question, short answer questions, true, false. I try not to do any multiple choice, because multiple choice they could probably do without actually reading the content. And I want to make sure that they're spending the time with the reading. So I try to leave it open-ended and true, false, so that they actually have to read the content. Over here, I've got some examples of my sketchbook assignments. So I do give one every week. They get it on Monday, they turn it in on Friday. And it usually aligns with what we're going over within the week. Now, I have an interactive word wall, which is something new that I have tried this year, but it turned out really nice. And so I wanted to share that with you guys today. So I used Padlet. And Padlet is very interactive. You can share the link out with the students. The students will come in and they're able to add things, you know, throughout the semester. And so we have words that are assigned to each of the students, and their task was to give me the written definition as well as a visual of their assigned word. So you can see here that we've got most of our common Art 1 words here, and they had to submit it to the interactive word wall so that they can reference it throughout the semester. And so this is actually a time saver, because I'm not going through in my lesson saying, okay, well, this is shape, this is the definition of shape. I can just say, hey, remember that interactive word wall you guys did? Go there for these words. And they like it because they can have some ownership with it, right? Because they created these pictures. So I thought that they did a really great job. And it's helpful because we have a visual and we have the written. So we're getting two different learning styles here at one time. But that is the interactive word wall. Now, the other thing that I wanted to show you guys while I'm here is I have some other resources that I've created. This is kind of with the Bitmoji classroom. So I went in and I created a slide for the elements of art. And if you click on each one, you can see that there's a video link that's attached, so they can click on that, takes them to the video, talks to them about the definition of line, gives them some examples, and they can do that for shape, form, texture, what have you. Now, I did this because this is the first year that we are doing Art 1 with North Carolina Virtual Academy. And I already knew just from having some of the students before in digital imaging and digital photography that I was going to have students with all different skill levels. And so I wanted to just provide this for those who may not know the general definitions, but I didn't want to spend a whole bunch of time in class on the elements and the principles. So I created both of these resources. I provided it to them. I told them to use it as they see fit. But essentially it's just a whole bunch of videos for them. So this could be a really great bell ringer. It could be a really great like homework assignment. And then the next day you could implement some type of workshop or activity. This can definitely be used in multiple ways. And I am more than happy to share this with you guys, and you can edit and manipulate it however you want. So you can just let me know if this is something that you would be interested in. But that's kind of asynchronous learning, essentially just providing resources, providing opportunities for students to kind of build their knowledge independently. Now, when we start talking about synchronous learning, and it's starting us all the way from the beginning. So synchronous learning is going to be the face-to-face classroom instruction. And is everybody using Google Classroom, Jason? Do we know? Yeah. Okay.
Most everybody is. I think some that are working with elementary grade levels there are a lot of schools in Maine that use Seesaw, but for the most part, most schools in Maine are Google schools.
Okay. So I have a little bit of background with Google Classroom, and then my daughter, when she was in kindergarten last year, they used Seesaw, which I was pretty impressed with Seesaw actually. But for synchronous learning, this is going to be your teacher-led instruction. So I do this in a number of ways. So I definitely have the sit and get, right? There's always going to be some type of opportunity where you're going to have to teach. You're going to have to tell them certain vocabulary words. You're going to have to go over certain techniques. And so that's what I deem my teacher-led instruction. However, I do try to give most of my time to what I call studio hour. So the way that I set up my week is on Mondays, we usually present the content. We talk about possibly about what we're going to be doing for our project. We complete any workshops. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we have studio hour. And during that time, I use breakout rooms. Each student has their own breakout room, and they are asked to work on their project, whatever that may be. And I pop through and I'll ask them to turn the camera on, show me their artwork. If we're doing digital photography or digital imaging and design, then I'll ask for them to share their screen. So it serves two purposes. Number one, I am making sure that they're working on what they're supposed to be working on. Number two, it's also like a formative assessment for me, right? I can go in and I can see what students are possibly struggling, what students may have questions, and I'm able to field those in real time so that they can ask those authentic questions. And I think as a visual arts teacher, that is one of the most critical things, right? We like the light bulb moments. We like to see the students actively working, solving problems, and we like to be there to help them with their questions. And with virtual learning, that can be very difficult. However, I have kind of the system of studio hour, they really enjoy it because that kind of bridges the gap, right? They get the time to work, they get the time to ask questions. And then I also get the time so that I can make sure that everybody's on the right track. Now, in coordination with studio hour, I also do peer critiques. And I do this in pairs most of the time. So students are paired up for the semester, and every project we come in on that Friday and we have a tag review. And so they come together, they share their artwork, they talk about things that they like, they ask questions, they give suggestions, and then the conversation usually snowballs from there. And it's really authentic for them. It's really great for me because they're using vocabulary, they're having conversations about their artwork, and they want more, right? They want to do more critiques, they want to have more gallery walks, they enjoy seeing each other's artwork. So being able to provide that time in a virtual setting, I think, is really important. Now, sometimes there are going to be cases where folks are not going to have their projects, they're not going to have their assignments ready. I stress that when we have our peer critiques, I don't want a finished product, right? Because we have our peer critiques on Friday and you don't have to turn your project until Sunday. So my expectation is that you have a work in progress. So that kind of eases the nervousness, the anxiousness that some folks may have, especially with presenting their artwork. And then, I don't try to do too many tests or quizzes, but when we have tests or quizzes, because we have to kind of review the vocabulary and the content, I try to make it fun. Has anybody ever heard of Kahoot? Have folks used Kahoot? Okay, Kahoot's awesome. And the kids love the competition. And so my go-to is Kahoot, and I have everything pre-made and preloaded. So when the unit comes up and it ends, we play a little Kahoot. I share it out to them so that they can practice on their own, and they love it. Now, something new that I have just started is I found a resource to kind of help make a Jeopardy board in PowerPoint. So it's a little bit more than a prep time, but it's really awesome. And what I've done is I've provided a recording of me implementing the Jeopardy game during a session, and kind of how it sequenced out, and the kids really enjoyed it. And honestly, I think they may have enjoyed it a little bit more than Kahoot, which is kind of saying something. But just to kind of go through some of these slides, so here's the studio hour slide. Like I said, I give them 3 days a week, 2 at the least, to work on their projects in class. And so I'll do like a little intro. Hey, how you doing? This is what we're working on. Does anybody have questions for the group? Yes, no. And then they go into studio hour. And I don't necessarily say anything. I just say, okay, we're going into studio hour. Here we go into our breakout rooms. And this slide is in every breakout room. So they know what to expect. I don't want to spend time every single week explaining what we're doing, how we're doing it. So this becomes a routine for them. Now, resource wise, I use a lot of things in my classroom. We were provided a document camera, so that's nice. I do know that not everybody is. There is a really great resource, and it is compatible with Android or iPhone. And I'm going to show you really quick. So if I come in here, it's iPev, and they have two apps. So you have to, on your actual phone, you have to download the iDocCam, and then on your computer, you can do the visualizer. But it's really accurate. So I'm going to activate my document camera, and then I'm going to activate visualizer. And so right now it's my document camera, like my actual document camera. But now I'm going to switch to my phone. And so now my phone is actually my document camera. And they make these nifty little stands, but you can probably find something sitting around the house that can hold your document camera up. But what I really like about this is you could use it in real time. There you go. You can actually record. There's a whiteboard feature, so if you like take a snapshot, you can isolate or circle certain things. So it's really nice. There's a whole bunch of different things that you can actually use this for, and so I wanted to share this with you. And I've put both of the Okay, I'm going to stop the video really quick. I've put both of these in the PowerPoint, so that if you don't have one as of right now, you can definitely check this out. Now, I will say that the only bummer about this is that I feel before the pandemic it was free, and then when the pandemic hit, they started charging for it. Now it's free for the first month, and then it is 99 cents a month. So not too terrible. And it's definitely something I think that you can like opt in and opt out of. So let's say at the end of the school year, if we get back on track and back to some sort of normalcy, then you could probably just cancel it. No biggie. But I did want to show that to you guys today, just so you know, because I know that's a big, huge thing for us, right? Being able to do demos. So there's that. The other two main things are these last two bullets. So IBIS Paint X. I think, when I have these conversations with visual arts teachers who are kind of delving into the remote learning world, is their concern is supplies, right? Not all the students are able to have pencils or paper or what have you. So there is an app called IBIS Paint X. Now I have an Android. I think that there is an iPhone version out there, but what it does, and I've had it on my phone, there isn't an application for your computer. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of just show you what it looks like on my document camera. So if you want to start a new canvas, you'll just click on this little plus sign, and you can import a picture, or you can just do a new canvas, a blank canvas. And what's really cool about this is you're able to, I know that it's not tactile and it's not like a real paintbrush or a real pencil or a real what have you, but it implements or kind of like pretends to be the actual media. So you can see here that you've got all these different options. So if I choose the paintbrush, it definitely gives me the options to change sizes. And I know that this is really horrible, and I apologize for that, but I'm just going to kind of talk you through it. And so it gives you different brush sizes. It gives you different options. So there's like a dip pen, felt tip, digital pen, airbrush. So all different types of things that you could implement here. And so I'm just going to pick the airbrush, and then I'm going to come over here to my canvas, and then I'm just going to make a circle. And so you can kind of see it implements, and you can change like the opacity. So I could change the opacity down and change like the depths. You can also change the color. It keeps asking me all these questions. So you can see it's got all different types of colors. So that's really cool. So it's just an app in case you wanted to possibly go that route. Again, just kind of thinking of ideas that we could use in the time being, right? And then the last thing here is GIMP. Now, I know that Photoshop is the preferred photo editing software. However, Photoshop you do have to pay for. There is a reduced fee if you're a teacher or a student, but there may be folks out there that are not able to pay the reduced fee. So I have found that GIMP is completely free. It's just phones. So IBIS Paint X, I know that you can download it on a phone and you can download it on a tablet, because I have quite a few students who have it on like their tablets. But I have not been able to find a version that is uploadable to my computer, if that makes sense. But in case you are teaching digital photography or you want to do some type of digital art project, I do have GIMP pulled up, and I just wanted to kind of show you the general outline. So is everybody seeing the chicken? Yep. Okay. So it's very compatible to Photoshop. Now the tools may have different names, and I haven't put eyes on Photoshop in quite so many years, so I have no idea what it looks like now. Just kind of reflecting on what it used to look like, I know it looks quite different, but the features are still the same. You're still able to go in and do simple photo editing. You can definitely recreate your own projects, no problem. But I just wanted to kind of show you what it looks like. It's completely free 100%, and they can do everything photo editing wise with this free version. But it's a really great tool. I use it a lot. Now, I do have some examples here of student artwork. So the artwork that is on the left-hand side, so these two, both of these were done in that IBIS Paint X app. And then the 4 that are over here on the right, all of these were done in GIMP. So like I said, you could go in and do typography, you can edit photos that way, but you can also recreate artwork from scratch on a blank canvas in there as well. And then I have the next slide. This is the last 2 projects that I've done with my Art 1 students. So implementing the practices that I'm sharing with you today, making sure I have the document camera, pushing out teacher demo recordings, doing simple workshops with them to help them kind of complete their projects, giving them that time in class to work. So I had a slide for Kahoot, but it seems like a lot of you are quite familiar with Kahoot, so I'm going to skip that part. One thing about Kahoot that I really like is it gives you the reports. And since the pandemic has come about, they've really narrowed down their process, and you're able to kind of like, have the students put in their names. You're also able to go in and view the report and see, okay, well, Johnny missed 5 of the 6 questions that we covered today. Maybe I should check in with him tomorrow and make sure that he's understanding the content and what have you. So I would definitely suggest that if you're not using the reports to kind of reflect back and do that formative assessment, that you use that to kind of engage with your students on a daily basis. And then here's the Jeopardy game. So with the Jeopardy game, like I said, it's a little bit more prep than you would possibly have with Kahoot, but it's really interactive. And essentially, so I have the resource here. underneath the word Jeopardy. And basically, this is your main page here, and everything's hyperlinked. So if they say, okay, I want history of photography for 100, then you would click on that and it would take you directly there. And then the next go round, if they say, well, I want compositional elements for 400, then it'll directly link to the question, so you're not like constantly flipping through the PowerPoint slides. Like, it's going to take you directly there. And so, like I said, I have the resource here, and I've also provided 2 recordings so you can see kind of how it works in the session with the students. But they really enjoyed it. Now, additional ideas. I'm not sure if you guys have a local art museum in your area. I know that in North Carolina, in Raleigh, we have the North Carolina Museum of Art, and they're conducting live virtual field trips right now. So we can contact them and kind of coordinate with them, and they will take us through the museum and show actual artwork and kind of have that virtual experience with our students. With our museum, they do all the prep work. So essentially, we just have to come, and then they'll kind of run the session. So it's really authentic, and I would encourage you to kind of check in if you have a resource available.
We are lucky, Katie. We have several museums spread out around the state, and many of them are, if they're not offering synchronous virtual experiences or asynchronous content as well, many of them I know are working on developing that right now. I know we have a great museum at Colby College that's part of the Lunder family collection. And then we have the Portland Museum of Art, which is also connected to our main College of Art. And we have several museums on the Mid-Coast area that are also working on providing opportunities for teachers and students as well. So we're lucky to have that. But like you said, it's a growing, it's sort of a weird niche market right now during a pandemic to want to offer those things. But yeah, we are lucky to have those opportunities popping up more, as every week passes.
Great, that's awesome. Now, I will say that with the North Carolina Museum of Art, so if I know that we're in North Carolina, but they have a YouTube channel, and they have artist talks, artist discussions. They have virtual tours that are already pre-made. So if you don't necessarily want to link up with the museum, like on a first name basis and actually have a session, they have a whole bunch of resources that are available for educators. And there's also a page called NCMA Learn. And they have lesson plans and ideas and resources that are provided there as well. So like I said, I will be providing this PowerPoint to Jason so that he can share it out with you guys, because I have a whole bunch of things hyperlinked. The other thing too, just kind of going back to this slide, is I've hyperlinked a Google folder that has some lesson plans and some recordings for you guys if y'all are interested in that as well. So that's kind of wrapping it up, and it's given us quite a bit of time for questions. So you guys just kind of let me know what you have. Let me know what questions you may want to ask. I do have a survey somewhere.
If there's anyone that wants to ask any questions about the teaching assignment or situation that you're in right now, maybe something that has changed or developed either as the school year started, or something that came up that you were not prepared for, or maybe something that's coming down the line that you're wondering how to prepare for, we have this great opportunity now to have some of that discussion. If anyone wants to hop in, don't feel like you need to drop it in the chat. You can just turn your mic on if you want and hop in.
Something that kind of surprised me, and I'm wondering I don't know if anyone has any suggestions, or basically what's happened is I had a very distinct way that people kind of were pushing us towards When we began, for me, I have 2 days that I have the students. One day they're here, one day they're virtual, and then I have a whole other group that's 100% virtual. So they're basically attending art class once in person every 4 days. Sometimes it's a long time because it's over a weekend. But what I've been finding is on those off days, they're not doing their work. They're not zooming in, and it's just finding the time to call. I have 175 students. So I have, students that don't come in. So getting a hold of them, and I'm trying to, anyway, that's a whole other thing. What I've been finding now in the last 2 weeks, I've noticed that I have like 3 different things going on today in one class. I had one group, was doing this thing. The other group was doing this thing because they're behind, and you can't do this without doing that. You know what I mean? And I don't know how to avoid that. I mean, I appreciated what you said about having that studio time where they're on. They don't want to stay on. They're like, can I go now? And it's kind of like what everyone is doing. It's okay, here's that asynchronous, here, do this. Without me helping you, you may be dismissed, and it counts as attendance, but it's just not working.
What grade level do you have?
Middle school.
Oh, love middle school.
Oh, I love them. I love my middle schoolers.
Yeah, I taught middle school for 4 years brick and mortar before I transitioned to virtual. And I can see how that could be a pretty big struggle just for that age range in general. And so I guess my question would be, okay, so your first part was you had a certain way that everybody was kind of pushing you towards. And what I will say about that is that, arts education in general is very different than any other content area. And how somebody would teach math is completely different to how someone would teach English or art or what have you. And I know I'm not telling you anything you don't already know, but it's just one of those things where you have to kind of like figure out on yourself, like what's going to work best for you. And if the pace is too much, if the amount of work is too much, or what have you, like you don't want, this is already a stressful situation, so you don't want to increase that stress by setting them up for, I don't want to say failure, because that's a really bad word, but if you're giving them like 5 assignments in a week and they're only going to do 1, right? I'm just giving an example. Like that's one of those things where it's like, okay, well, maybe we should take it a step back. And I'm sure that like if you are worried about like standards and like what your administration is looking for or what have you, I would bet you that they're open to having those conversations in terms of how you should handle visual arts. And so my suggestion would be to kind of reflect on how things have been going. Think of any type of changes that you would make based off of what's going on. So I guess my question is you said you have one group that's 1 day in, 1 day out, and then a whole completely other group that's virtual, right? Now, are you trying to keep them both on the same pace, or are you doing different things?
Originally, I was trying to keep the kids that are here doing something, go home, do something to support what I did in class. I'm doing that, but now everybody's doing the same thing. Because with the exception that I have those kids that are behind or don't come. So they get here and I'm like, well, let me fill you in. And it's a lot to kind of keep straight in my brain. And then there's the fully virtual kids that, either don't show up, they're truant at this point. And then, it's, yeah.
So here's another suggestion that I have. I would make a bucket of like resources and like little short workshops that they could complete on their own. Like it's completely student friendly. If for those students who come in and haven't been there for maybe like 2-3 days, and it's going to take you the whole class period to get them caught up. That's really not helping you. It's really not helping them or the students who are actually on track. So instead of spending the class period trying to get them caught up on a project that's due next week or what have you, just have them do something in the bucket, because then you're still keeping them engaged, you're still having them do an assignment, but you're also not taking yourself away from the students who are actually actively working on the current assignment, and you're not having to keep up with so many things at one time.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Can I jump in just for a minute? Because I'm middle
Absolutely.
school too, and I'm glad you said that, because I'm teaching from home. I've decided not to go to school. I am zooming into my classroom, and there is a person there that's monitoring.
Okay.
And last year when we were doing this double, triple everything, I thought I was not going to make it. It was really, really difficult on me. And I really spent the summer with anxiety trying to think about how I could do it differently. So we have kids come into our school on Monday and Tuesday, a cohort, and the other kids are supposed to be doing something at home. And then the other kids come in Wednesday and Thursday, and the kids from Monday and Tuesday are supposed to be doing something at home.
Okay.
On Tuesday, it's kind of a check-in day, but I had made the decision early on that I would do an assignment that everybody was going to miss out on because we didn't have enough time through this virtual learning. And so we set up accordion books. I want to teach the elements of art and principles of design. So 5th and 6th grade are doing something that simple. And I do a little video, and then they have the week to accomplish that. And the older kids, the 8th graders, have the principles of design, and it engages them. And then while we're in school, I have an assignment that's totally different. So we're working on portraits. So you don't have to be doing this all week. And if you're behind, it's not really a big deal. It supports the lesson I'm doing, but I'm not worried about that, because when I have them in school and I realize that kids are not doing well at home, they're doing better at school, then I'm able to focus on them doing the project at home. And that stays at school, and this stays at home. And there's no crossover. They take a picture when they're done at the end of the week, and we move on to the next element until we've gone through that. So the classes at home and the classes at school. So we're out right now because we have our first COVID case. They're only 20 minutes. So I told the kids, like, you can do that in 15 minutes or less. And so I feel like it's doable. Our big thing last year was grace over gratitude. And so I have kids who are doing it in pencil and getting credit, kids who are doing it in marker and getting credit, kids who are like, there are so many opportunities to be successful just by participating. And so that has helped me in my anxiety, just saying.
Great. That's great. Yes, flexibility is definitely the name of the game when you are in the virtual world. And I think that's a really great idea, just to kind of like, home stuff is home stuff, school stuff is school stuff, and then definitely giving them like, that 2-day project that they're working on in class. Now, I guess my one question is the stuff that they do at home, are you treating that as like extra credit? So if the folks who don't do it, do they get a 0?
So it's a homework assignment, so it doesn't weight a lot. And honestly, in middle school, I think some of the kids have figured out if they don't do it, it doesn't matter. They're still going to the next grade. And I had to kind of let that go. Like, I had contacted parents, I called kids, I went through the gamut last year. I'd be on my computer 24/7. And I just realized that I had to streamline it for myself, because if we went into this learning for another year, I wouldn't have made it. And I just had to kind of let that go, because really that was maybe the kid who wasn't doing anything in class either. And so I was spinning my wheels, and I just really needed to move forward. And I think that this year is better because I've let that go. Like, I've let that go, and I feel like more kids are participating because I'm not so stressed about it.
Great. I will throw a resource out there. There's a resource called Remind, and it's a text messaging app, and you can also do robocalls. So it's going to save you from having to make like 100 individual calls, right? Like, you could collect the information first for all of your students. And let's say you got 50 students who didn't turn in the elements of art project. So then you could type a text message, hey, just as a quick reminder that you've not turned in your project, the due date is such and such, it's this many points. And then you just send it out to everybody. And so that helps in terms of saving time, because, you know, especially for art folks, you know, you get 100, 200, 300 students, and it's like, how am I supposed to call all these people? There's not enough minutes in the day, right, to even do a fraction of that. So anything that can help you. Emails are a big thing for our school. Students know that checking the emails, checking the announcements, those are like their go-tos. But yeah, definitely Remind. It's like a phone app, I believe. So I'm going to share that we're getting kind of within the 5-minute mark of our 4 o'clock time, and I want to be mindful of everybody's time. So I'm going to throw the survey in the chat box again. So if you have individual questions that you would like to possibly talk about a little bit more in depth, or if you would like more ideas or what have you, I've gave the link in the chat box, and I will try to start looking at those tomorrow and reaching out to you folks. I did ask for an email, so that's how we will correspond if you have further questions. But I believe that we will be meeting next week as well on Thursday at 4 o'clock. And during that time, we're going to be talking about assessments. So talking a little bit more in depth about the peer critiques that I hold in class, and also how I deal with grading.
That's awesome, Katie. Thank you for your presentation today. I hope that it was of benefit. I saw a lot of heads nodding as you were going through some things, which is fantastic. So everybody, you'll notice that I put in the chat a link to an exit ticket for tonight's session. And if you haven't done a session with me before, as soon as you complete that, you'll be given a link to go claim your PD certificate for tonight's session. And then there's Catherine dropped her survey link in the chat as well, so she would love to hear from you. And I did put information in the chat about what the synopsis is for next week's session. Again, we are going to be back here at 4 o'clock a week from today, and we'll be talking about assessing art students using technology. So I encourage you to spread the word. The listserv newsletter that I sent out today has a link to register for all of these sessions in it. So if you did not register for next week's session, or you want to share that with a colleague or friend, the more the merrier. We'd love to have lots of folks taking advantage of what we are putting out there. It says ticket not made yet. That's interesting, Martha, because the ticket, I just looked at it. Somebody responded to it. Try the link again, Martha, and see if it will work for you again. Because I did get a response already from somebody, so it's working for someone. And if it's working for one, it should be working for all. And I will make Katie's slides available to all of you by email probably tomorrow, as well as a link to the video of tonight's session as soon as I get it loaded up to the Department of Education's YouTube channel, where you can find it for later viewing. Did it work, Martha?
It doesn't like me, Jason. I tried it 3 times.
Really?
No, I tried it like 3 times.
Interesting. I will. I'll try to send it by email and see if maybe that works, because I have other people that are submitting it right now. So that's kind of bizarre. Weird. You must have a gremlin in your machine, Martha.
I'm getting a new computer.
Oh, there you go. Fantastic. All right, everybody, we have 3 minutes that I'll turn you loose a little early. Thanks again, Katie. We look forward to seeing you back here next week. Thanks for your time and your presentation. And again, everybody, we hope you come back and join us next week for assessing art students using technology. Hope you have a great rest of your week and a great start to next week. Make sure you grab the chat before you leave. So if you want to click on those 3 dots down in the chat box and select Save Chat, that will let you have access to everything in the chat box, including links and whatnot for a later time. So I'll give everybody a minute to grab the chat, and then we can be on our way.